desert in the great American Southwest. I'm Art Bell.
Slamming into your radio like a supercharged nanoparticle of unobtainium. My name is George Knapp.
I'm Richard Serrett.
This is Connie Willis.
I'm George Noory. Welcome to Coast AM. It's great to be here.
Welcome to Coast PM, the number one unofficial Coast to Coast AM podcast. We are two brothers who analyze the world's largest overnight paranormal radio show known as Coast to Coast AM. My name is Paul, and I'm the guy that listens to this inexplicable radio show here with my brother.
Hey, it's Chris. I'm the Roger Waters to your Sid Barrett because we're going to the dark side of the moon today.
We are indeed, Chris. We are going to be talking about George Noory's interview with Richard Hoagland from March 20th, 2023, and it's all about evidence of secret lunar domes that the government has been hiding from us.
So we got some hard evidence these things exist, huh?
It is the hardest of evidence. I don't know how anyone can deny it at this point.
Just throbbing evidence.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to it. And there's a lot of images associated with this episode today, so we're gonna try to keep it as audio friendly as possible. We'll make sure to link to everything in the show notes as well, so that folks can check out the evidence for themselves, because that's what we're all about. You know, we don't want to tell you what to think.
That's right. That's right. Just you got to put your eyeballs on this stuff.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to something as important as ancient lunar domes, you know, you have to make your own decisions, I think, is really what we're getting at.
I'm really excited to see if these things turn into space arcs.
Oh, well, we'll find out, Chris. But before we do, we got to go check out Tim Banal at the Coast to Coast AM blog.
Tim time!
Today's article: man in China jailed for scaring over 1,000 of his neighbor's chickens to death.
That's a quite the scaremonger.
Yeah, indeed. So, reading from the article. A man in China is headed to prison after being busted for scaring over 1,000 of his neighbor's chickens to death.
I feel like there's a good "why did the chicken cross the road" joke here, Paul, but it's escaping me right now. Maybe we'll figure it out later on.
Yeah, we may find it as we're going. The bizarre case reportedly began last year in the county of Hindwang, when the perpetrator of the poultry massacre, identified in the Chinese media by his surname Zhu, became embroiled in a bitter feud with a chicken farmer identified as Zong, who lives next door to him.
What a feud that 1,000 chickens end up dead because of it.
That's one of the worst feudal massacres, I think, since the Hatfields and McCoys, man. This is a brutal one.
Yes. It's almost as brutal as 100 sheep in India.
Almost. I don't know. What I'm assuming 1,000 chickens weigh less than 100 sheep. What's this a sheep weigh?
I was trying to do the conversion rates, and I don't know what a chicken to sheep conversion rate goes these days.
Well, we'll have to figure that out, because I think that's going to ultimately determine which was the worst disaster. Back to the article. Their previously peaceful coexistence was shattered when Zhu cut down some trees on Zong's property without his permission.
Oh, dude, you got to be careful about cutting trees that aren't on your property, man. That always leads to a feud.
It always does. When the chicken farmer rightfully claimed the downed trees, Zhu, who presumably had plans for the wood, became enraged and set about enacting his rather strange revenge.
Okay, all right. I'm ready to hear. How did this man scare 1,000 chickens to death?
I'm actually pretty interested too. Armed with a flashlight, Zhu crept onto his neighbor's farm late one evening and proceeded to terrify the chickens by unexpectedly illuminating them, which caused the animals to crowd into a corner where a whopping 460 of them died.
Yeah, dude, they will smother themselves to death if they get scared. So this is a man who knows what he's doing. This is premeditated chicken murder, dude.
I mean, apparently it's kind of easy to kill chickens. You just shine a light at them and they just stampede each other.
Yeah, I imagine he was probably, kind of shining the lights and moving them, kind of corralling them.
Although he was arrested for the odd attack and ordered to pay Zong approximately $430 in damages, this only escalated the tensions between the two men. To that end, amazingly, the masked chicken killer actually struck again shortly thereafter, and this time around took down a staggering 640 of the birds using the same dastardly technique.
Dang, so he did it again and killed even more birds, dude. This is a monster.
This man is psychotic.
This man is a monster. The birds didn't do anything.
Here, I was gonna almost give him a pass the first time if it was a crime of passion. Like he got really worked up about the wood and was like, just got all fed up and then just killed all the chickens. But going back again, now this man wants to kill these chickens.
Because to be fair, trees are living things as well. And again, I don't know what the conversion rate from chicken to tree is.
Yeah.
But it's not 1-to-1. It
Yeah.
isn't 1-to-1, especially if these are fruit-bearing trees.
That's true. We don't know the type of tree, which also would be a factor in this.
It would a huge factor.
No. Now, when on trial for the second case of property damage, Jew showed no remorse for his actions, and as such, the judge handed him down a stiff penalty for the poultry killer.
There was an old video game for Xbox called Fable, Paul. I'm sure you remember it.
Big fan.
One of the goofy titles you could choose for yourself was Chicken Slayer. So I think this man will forever be deemed Chicken Slayer.
That is an excellent reference. I'm really proud of you for that, Chris.
You're welcome.
The man was not only ordered to compensate Song for the second slew of lost chickens, which were valued at around $1,600, but also sentenced to serve 6 months in jail for the audacious crime. It remains to be seen whether or not the time behind bars will cause Jew to regret his role in the feud, although one imagines the embarrassment of having to explain to fellow inmates why he is in prison just might do the trick.
So, how does that guy do in prison?
I don't think he does well because, like, that is the lamest reason to end up in prison. And also, you're just kind of an asshole if you were killing all these chickens.
Just kind of a jerk. I don't know. I don't know how the other prisoners would take to murdering 1,000 chickens. It's an impressive number.
That's true, yeah.
It's an impressive number of chickens, which he may get some credit for that. 1,000 chickens is staggering.
Well, when we find out how he does, we will definitely keep everyone updated. And now for some housekeeping. We have an email address. Send your thoughts to c2cpmpod@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at c2cpmpod or on our subreddit Coast to Coast PM. If you like the show, please drop us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It is the easiest way to support us and helps with the algorithm and helps other people find us. So please take like 2 seconds to go do that. And then also make sure to subscribe. We release episodes every Thursday, and that'll make sure you never miss one. And you can also support us on Patreon by following the link in the show notes to get ad-free episodes and early access to episodes. And we also care a lot more about those listener requests that are sent in via Patreon. Let's get to the show. George Noory's interview with Richard Hoagland from March 20th, 2023. And a big part of why I wanted to do this episode, Chris, was because we talked a little bit about Richard Hoagland on our ancient archaeology episode. And it gave me the hankering for some Hoags.
Yeah, you seemed particularly interested in Richard Hoagland, and I'm going to be honest, I hadn't really heard of him other than the little bit mentioned by Jeffrey.
Yeah, so Hoagland would show up a lot of times on Art Bell's show and then also with Noory, mainly to talk about ancient structures on Mars. That was his thing. He was like the Mars guy.
Was Hoagland a part of any of the Hale-Bopp comic stuff?
I don't recall if he was
maybe
involved
not.
in that.
Maybe I may be thinking of somebody else. But all right, anyways, please go ahead. So oh, that's right. So Hoagland was the one who was really promoting the face on Mars.
Yeah, he was the face on Mars guy.
Face on Mars guy. Okay.
That there's a giant face on Mars and there's an ancient civilization that used to live there, and we could find it through NASA's photographs.
Kind of a lame guy to be.
Well, Chris, we're going to find out today because, he claims that he has some breaking news for Coast to Coast's show.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But let's go ahead. Let's hear it.
Well, tonight we're going to go, like 100 times better, because what I'm going to announce on your show for the first time nationally is the fact that we've got governmental confirmation from the South Korean unmanned mission heading to the moon from last August, arrived last December, is now firmly in orbit, and is taking stunning images with a special onboard camera and posting them on their own official government South Korean Space Agency website, which confirm my assertion for decades that the moon is covered with ancient artificial structures all over the moon.
My dude made a whole lot of claims in a very rapid succession, all of which I think we can fact check, right?
Yes, we definitely can. So there is a South Korean lunar orbiter out there right now, and it's currently taking pictures of the moon.
Truth one,
down. That is real. You can go to the website of the Korea Pathfinder Lunar Orbiter and actually see the images for yourself. So you don't take our word for it. It's like it's basically like their NASA, right? NASA puts all their raw images up. Korea does the same thing.
I imagine the Korean name for Pathfinder is much cooler than Pathfinder is in English.
Yeah, most likely. The actual name of the orbiter, I think, is like Denaro or something like that. I'll have to double check. He's going to bring it up at some point, but the translation is basically like "enjoy the moon" is what it means, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the moon enjoyer.
Yeah, so it's definitely a vibe.
Yeah, cool.
So that's
man.
all real. Now, whether or not you believe that these images show lunar domes, that may be more for interpretation. So we're going to get into that tonight.
Okay. All right. So, but we will be able to see these and be able to tell that these are in fact lunar domes that are probably an ancient alien society, right?
Yeah. We are going to be able to see them. Yes, I will definitely validate that portion of things.
Okay.
I'll let you discuss the rest as you are viewing them for our listeners, what you think they are.
Perfect.
Now, here's the question, man. He's a Mars guy. How did he get into the moon? Shouldn't he be looking at Mars pictures?
Yeah, what's going on here? You're looking at two different spatial bodies.
So I started looking at other implications of what would be true in our own history and in the solar system if there were, in fact, smashingly large artificial structures on Mars at a place called Cydonia featuring a humanoid face. And one of the implications of that, if we were not looking at a culture on Mars strictly independently evolved, originated and evolved, having nothing to do with Earth, which was incredibly improbable, if the face was an indication of some connection between Mars and Earth, then what would limit that connection between Mars and the moon, or Mars and Jupiter, or Mars and Saturn, or Mars and Mercury? In other words, was there an ancient solar system-wide influence which had left artifacts not only on Mars, but also elsewhere in the solar system, potentially even including our own moon?
All right, Paul. So I'm willing to concede that if somebody did have structures on Mars, that it would not preclude them from having structures on the other planets in our solar system. I'll give him that. I'll give Mr. Hoagland that much. He's preferencing it all on that the face on Mars is real.
Yeah.
And this has been debunked for what, 20 years?
Debunked by who, Chris? Debunked by who?
Oh.
Not by Hoagland.
Losers.
That's an important thing to mention, is that Hoagland stands by the face on Mars. This is not something he considers to be debunked. And for those who don't know what the face on Mars is, it's literally, he thinks that there's a humanoid face on the planet of Mars that then points to an ancient civilization once being there. That's basically it.
And if you haven't listened to our What's Under the Sphinx episode, the face on Mars is connected to the Sphinx, which means that we are Martians.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's where Hoagland's all about, right? Is that
Right.
there were Martians, and it couldn't have happened that a species that's sentient popped up on Mars and Earth separately. We have to be related, most likely. Mars was destroyed. There was a cataclysm, and then they had to move to Earth for some reason.
Yeah.
But he also says that he doesn't really know exactly what happened. No one knows, right? But something definitely happened. The thing that I will knock him for is he was saying what's going to prevent them from, like, the connection from Mars and the moon, or Mars and Earth, or Mars and Jupiter. I have a feeling there aren't structures on gas giants. I don't know how you would do that. I think it would be difficult. So I'm going to say that there's not ancient tech in Jupiter. I just feel pretty confident saying that.
Well, Paul, so here I'm going to debunk you several times. First one
This is the debunking episode.
The moons around Jupiter will be great for early space colonizing. So boo on you there. Second of all, you have not been watching your anime sci-fi, because if you had, then you would have watched Cowboy Bebop, and there are floating in the atmosphere cities.
That's on Venus. I think it would be different from Venus to an actual gas giant, but I will give you the moons. I'll give you the moons for sure, but that's neither here nor there, right? Because here's the thing that's important, Chris, is the moon, and that there are ancient lunar domes on there that you can see with the South Korean pictures. Right?
That's what we're talking about.
That's what we're talking.
That's what we're talking about.
And now here's the thing, dude. And we may get in trouble for this too. He apparently had a run-in with the CIA for releasing these types of moon secrets. So we'll keep our listeners up to date if we do have any men in black suits hanging outside our houses, because this sounds pretty scary, the story he's about to tell.
If you don't hear an episode from us in 2 weeks, then we've been captured by the CIA. Like, we may miss 1 week. That is just because we're dingleberries. 2 weeks is not going to happen. Well, somebody put some feelers out.
Call Julian Assange's lawyer. We're going to need help.
We're going to need help. We're deep inside Langley, Virginia.
I have heard rumors that the CIA may have dropped some info on you. Is that true?
Yes. And it was in 1994 when I and Cynthia and a bunch of other people that I got together were all invited to Cody, Wyoming, to something called the 1994 Cody, Wyoming Mars Conference. And unbeknownst to the backers, who it turned out later were CIA, I had prepared a secret presentation to debut my completely separate work on the moon.
29 years ago.
Yeah, and I hadn't told anybody I was doing this, and I debuted my work at this conference, and for it I earned a trip to the back room and an incredibly severe, almost life-threatening, scolding from the presenters behind the scenes who'd put the conference on, who were stunned that I was looking at the moon and not at Mars. But they had no defense against the moon because they didn't know anybody was looking until I debuted what I was doing at this conference in 1994.
So I'm not sure about the part where that was the CIA and not the people who threw a Mars conference and this man starts talking about the moon.
That's my favorite part, is that they get mad at him for being completely off topic. Like, the focus of the conference was to talk about Mars, and he's talking about a completely different planetary body, and they get pissed. Like, yeah, that sort of makes sense. That's not the point of the conference.
But it was the CIA, Paul. I'm telling you, please believe me.
Well, do you want to hear his reasons why he thinks it was the CIA?
Please, I have to hear this.
And who at the CIA was getting to you?
So Cody, Wyoming is like a hotbed of retired, there are no such things as retired CIA officers. And they, it turned out, were the ones that put on this conference, obviously to draw out what we knew about Mars. And when I, kind of sprung the moon on them, and the stuff that I had taken from the NASA and other archives that's there, it completely bollocksed up their game plan.
Dude, I'm going to give Hoagland points on that. I'm going to give him points on that, dude. Cody, Wyoming is probably filled with spooks.
You think they're just all over the place?
Listen, they all
Spooky.
go to, yeah, dude, they all go to Jackson. All the rich people go to Jackson Hole. I bet like there are CIA, NSA outcroppings all around Jackson Hole. Just like they're just getting pure information from these, whatever billionaires and Uber politicians.
Well, but here's the thing I'll say. It doesn't sound like he actually has any evidence that these people were CIA. It sounds like after the fact, when they didn't like what he did, he decided they were CIA and used Cody, Wyoming as the excuse.
Controlled opposition, Paul.
Much like us.
Much like us.
So that's how he knew he was definitely onto something, was because the CIA spooks gave him a very scary scolding, according to him.
I'm going to give him that one. I was a little skeptical at first, but he completely convinced me.
All right, so that's a +1 for Hoagland.
Yeah. So far we got truth. The South Koreans have sent a probe around the dark side of the moon. Truth. They posted those pictures on their website. Truth. They definitely showed domes that were created by some kind of maybe human precursor. Truth. And then the CIA's in Cody, Wyoming, trying to do smoke signals to get, the real Mars and moon truthers out there. So I'm liking Mr. Hoagland right now.
We got a Hoagland fan. We did it.
Yeah.
That's a +1 off the Snooze website.
Yeah.
You can sign up for his secret VIP pass for like $10 a month, I think. A little pricey, to be honest. Yeah, I was expecting like $5. That feels more reasonable.
Yeah.
$9.99 is a lot, but
I might sign up for the free newsletter though.
yeah, you can definitely get that. Now, here's the thing about the moon, Chris, is that it's actually a lot easier to see stuff on the moon than it is Mars, right? So it's going to be something we're going to get into today about how all of us can actually get involved in this, right? Because it is so much easier.
We're going to learn how telescopes work.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because there's all kinds of stunning stuff on Mars. Everybody is looking on the team and they see them, but they're so hard for laymen to see.
Right.
Because they're covered by all that damn dust and rust and, oxidation and dirt, and they're amid a whole bunch of rocks. The stuff on the moon, by contrast, is stunningly, obviously, brilliantly not supposed to be there when you look at these images from the South Koreans. They're running some kind of extraordinary deep state op or whatever, because what the South Koreans did when they launched last August, this 1,500-pound unmanned probe, they carried on board a special camera never taken by any mission to the moon. It's called a polarimetric camera.
Ooh, well, let's learn what that is, Paul.
Yeah, so we're going to get into the section of the show where they start discussing photographs, which were posted on Coast to Coast PM's website. And I'm going to be honest with you, dude, this is really bad radio.
Posted on Coast to Coast AM's website.
Sorry, Coast to Coast AM's website. This is really bad radio. I was listening to this and it kind of sucked. So I'm just going to give you a taste of it, just so you get a sense of what the 2 hours was like. But then I did my best to kind of trim it up for our purposes.
Got it. Let's get into it.
Well, if you go to my first image, and you can tell folks how to get there because I'm having internet problems tonight. So
it's in the highlight reel at coasttocoastam.com. It's the first button. Just click that. The one I'm looking at is called the Noory Moon.
No, that's number 2.
That's number 2.
There's one above that.
It's like the ring of the top of the moon.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then there's a close-up on the right showing the moon much bigger and the horizon. You see that?
With a glow behind it. Yep.
Well, the full ring image is on the left, and the close-up is on the right. You see that, right?
Yep, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
All right, I think that's give you a sense of that.
That was awful, but that was terrible. But the ring around the moon, is this a part of the hollow Earth, the hollow moon?
No. It's not part of the hollow moon.
Okay. I was thinking, I was like, wait a minute, Mr. Hoagland about to start talking about the little sun inside of the moon.
No, it's more of a halo in the
Okay.
photograph around the moon. So basically what it is, it's an image of the moon, and
All
it's
right.
a relatively dark image, and then around the edge is kind of a light.
Yeah, I see it. Is that have like the little bit of atmosphere that the moon has?
So let's see what Hoagland has to say about
Okay,
it, and then we'll
all
talk
right.
through my findings, which differ slightly. Not to say anything bad about Hoagland. I just have a slightly different interpretation than lunar domes.
Got it.
This is absolutely astonishing, impossible, should not exist. And the South Koreans, when they're asked what it means, they're not talking to anybody. One of my astronomy colleagues has been trying for days to get hold of the South Koreans, who are the principal scientists who are involved with this mission and this camera, and they will not answer an email.
Why'd they dump these pictures on us?
That's what's so stunning. It's like a soft disclosure. What they did, because they're working hand in glove with NASA, they set aside 33 pounds to include a special NASA shadow cam on this Korean mission to the moon, which is run by Mike Malin, who is the chief cover-up artist in NASA, both of the moon and of Mars. Anyway, it's all one very unhappy family.
What is this ring around the moon?
It shouldn't be there. You've looked at the moon a million times, I'm sure, with binoculars.
And I've never seen a ring.
You've never seen, because it doesn't exist with your naked eye.
I want to figure out how you get the title chief cover-up artist.
You have to piss off Richard Hoagland, apparently, and that'll do it.
What an incredible job title.
So, Chris, this one actually threw me for a loop because no one online is talking about the halo around the moon.
Right.
So I was having a hard time figuring out exactly where these pictures were coming from until I thought, wait, it looks like he just took a screenshot from the Korean Space Agency's website. Just go there. So when I went to the Space Agency's website, I found a very similar picture in a gallery that is on the homepage of the website, as most homepages have. And you can see here, Chris, this is actually a marketing photo because it has an image of the orbiter. The orbiter's not taking a picture of itself in front of the moon.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely like website design, and he's taken a screenshot of the photo and then put it right side up.
And the other thing going on in this picture is that what they are trying to show off here is that the orbiter is set up with a shadow camera. It was designed by I believe it was Arizona State University actually funded this. And it's a special camera that can take pictures of really dark sections of the moon. Because the moon itself, there are regions of it at its poles basically that never see light. So we can't really, they never see enough light for us to see what's inside of them, right? So this is a super special camera that can go over them and then take pictures and see if there's water. And this is super relevant for us wanting to put bases on the moon because we want to see if there are reservoirs of water inside these craters at the poles. So that's why the camera's there. This marketing photograph is showing off the fact that the orbiter is taking pictures on the dark portion of the moon, and then there's a halo around the edges to show that it's the dark portion and then that's the light portion on the other side, right? That's what we're looking at here. This is not an actual photograph.
Yeah, Paul, that's all good and well, but wouldn't it be a whole lot easier if there were already bases on the moon that we could just use?
It would be a lot easier. Yeah, that would definitely streamline all this if there were lunar domes.
They're looking for water, quote unquote, but what they're actually looking for is huge underground structures that we can go ahead and use as military jumping off points.
Now, the other thing that it looks like Hoagland has done with these images that he's posted is that it appears to me that he has been messing with the saturation and the contrast on them.
Yeah,
because you can see pretty clearly, even if you just look at the yellow on the screen, it's very different. And I started jacking around with it to try and get a match, and basically by messing with contrast and saturation to make this halo look bigger. I feel like I matched it pretty well.
You did good. You did a good job, dude. That's
Thank you.
pretty impressive, actually.
So what Hoagland has done is taken a screenshot of a marketing photograph that also in the picture includes a red line showing the orbit of the probe, and then messed around with it inside of a pretty weak photo editor, and then said that it's evidence of lunar domes.
Yeah, dude, I'm getting real strong Professor Courtney Brown vibes from Emory University.
Yeah, it's not the best. As I was going into this, I was like, I'm not super impressed with your evidence right now, Mr. Hoagland, especially because there's a lot of other pictures that South Korea has put up, and you can go and find all of them. None of them show this. This is specifically a screenshot from the homepage of the website that he's talking about.
All right, I'm still not giving up on Hoagland yet, though.
All right, we're not giving up on him. We're still in it.
We had some good truth. We had some good truth. That one wasn't great. I didn't love it, but he's got more, right?
He's got more. Sure,
Okay.
He's got more. All right, so the other thing, this is all about disclosure, right? So I think we do need to establish, why is this happening, right? Why are they putting this out there on the front page of their website, man?
Limited hangout.
Are you baffled that they released all these photos?
No, it's part of disclosure. Remember, Brookings basically said the name of the game is to make people so bored with this that when we finally announce it, they'll go, oh, hell, I've known about that for years. And that's what they're doing. It's drip, 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 time-release aspirin, mixing our metaphors badly.
What? Who's Brookings? Does he mean the Brookings Institute?
I actually don't know who he's talking about there.
Okay. All right. But he just means the elite control sphere PR machine.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want us to know about the Martian humans having to flee Earth or flee Mars for some reason and putting their bases on the moon and on Jupiter and the rest of the solar system.
Yeah, pretty much. They don't want us to know about it yet. They're in the process of telling us.
Slow release aspirin.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing to us right now.
Yeah, and they're starting with the South Korean lunar orbiter website.
What a great place to start, dude. I don't even know where South Korea is.
There you go. So the reason why there's this halo, though, is because there's glass domes all over the moon, and this is apparently what it looks like when you use a polarized camera on a moon that is covered in glass.
I mean, we're looking at a technology that through means that we can imagine, but certainly can't duplicate for, hundreds of years, a technology to basically put a series of glass domes all over the entire moon, englobe the entire moon to a depth of tens of miles. And we're now looking at the eroded remains in the only way that it really is visible, which is what's called polarized light. Light comes in two forms. It changes color when you change frequency, and it changes visibility when you change what's called polarization. And you can create literally lenses which will filter out the background noise and allow you, like the South Koreans have obviously done, to look at the damn remnants of the dome around the whole moon.
My dude's cursing a little bit. Georgie isn't getting on to him about that?
George, by the end of this, George is going to be annoyed with Hoagland.
Okay.
Yeah, he's going to get a little agitated with him.
I know Georgie doesn't love a potty mouth, and we've already heard a couple of potty words.
Yeah, we have. The other thing that Hoagland ends up doing is he interrupts callers, and George really doesn't like when people
right.
do
Well,
that.
he loves his callers are his bread and butter.
Yeah, dude, he loves the fans.
Yeah.
And I respect that about George, how much he loves his fans.
We love our fans.
That's true. You gotta love them.
Gotta love them. Love you guys. All right.
Tens of miles deep, these lunar domes
Yes.
covering the surface. It's all over the place.
Holy guacamole, dude. I mean, we could shove probably a couple million people on the moon then.
Yeah, and I mean, it's already there. We just
Right.
gotta get people up there.
Yeah, dude, I'd go live on the moon for 2 years. I'd do, like our boy Olaf did 2 years in the Hollow Earth.
Mhm.
I'm going to go do 2 years on the moon.
Well, and here's the thing, man. If all these governments know about it and they're all coordinating to secretly disclose it, are you telling me there aren't already people living in those domes?
Oh, definitely. There's
Come on.
definitely people living.
There's
definitely,
a whole city already up there, dude.
yeah, dude, easy. Just
Yeah.
filled with CIA and NSA spooks.
All from Wyoming. They all just
they
direct
left.
line.
Yeah, dude, they flew out of Cody, Wyoming to the dark side of the moon air base.
Yeah, that's the new retirement spot. Is the Lunar Dome.
Hey, dude, you're away from the plebs.
Well, and here's the thing, Chris. So we got South Korea who's signaling to us, right, that they know about this. China's also signaling.
Ooh.
They're putting out secret messages to let the public know.
That balloon was supposed to go to the moon,
Potentially.
but it went over South Carolina instead.
Yeah, we don't have evidence it wasn't meant for the moon.
It was meant for the moon balloon.
Mm-hmm.
If you now look down at image number 3, this is what the Chinese have done. Remember, the Chinese want to own the moon. If you look carefully at the details between the left-hand image, which is South Korean, and the right-hand image, which is Chinese Space Agency art, you'll notice that the Chinese took the same image and accentuated with some art, blocking the dome, and then put their red stars and their yellow stars and their spacecraft that's going to send astronauts someday to the moon to open up a Chinese lunar base. And they're telling us in this foreshadowing art, this is why they're going, because they know what is there.
George, as we all know, Chinese trying to own the moon. They trying to buy the moon from the moon owners, and they're going to buy and they're going to own the moon, and they're going to have all the cheese, George. They're going to have all the cheese.
This comment is what made me feel like Richard Hoagland is not well, because he's talking about what is, you can call the marketing image, maybe more if it's a propaganda image, but it's an image of the moon that's been turned red, and there's a big yellow Chinese star on it.
Yeah,
and he's saying that star was placed there to cover up a secret dome to signal to everyone that's why they're going to the moon. This is a level of like paranoia that makes me a little concerned.
It's just the Chinese flag, and instead of a flag, they've used the moon.
Yeah, that's it. That's the whole bit.
Yeah.
It's just a bit.
Yeah, dude, I'm rarely one to defend the Chi-Coms, but my God, dude, like sometimes propaganda is just propaganda.
Yeah, just let it be. They're just trying to go to the moon, man. And I'm sure they're going to try to take over portions of the moon.
Yeah,
just like we are. Everyone's going to do it.
Can you imagine what that space race is going to look like when there's just like rockets going off every single day from the Earth? And like the construction fees, and just like, it's hard to fathom. It's hard to fathom for us right now what that looks like. Mm-hmm. But it is going to get intense.
Yeah, I hope I get to go. That's all I'm going to say. I hope I get to visit the moon one day.
Oh my God, dude! And then we get to go see these huge cities created by our Martian ancestors. I'm pretty stoked about that.
It's a great time, man. Well, and the other thing that Hoagland goes into, Chris, is how NASA is also in on this. So
of course, dude, they're the kings of it, dude. They're the ones controlling all the strings. We've lost the Chinese strings, we've lost the Russian strings, but we used to have them all, dude. In the 90s, America was beefy, baby. Mm-hmm. We were beefy.
Do you think NASA is shaking its head with these photographs?
No, they're part of the whole game plan. Remember, if you go back to Brookings, it never said, we will never tell the people what their tax money has bought, right?
Right.
It always said, we will do it at the appropriate time.
When they're ready.
And now, everything is hitting the fan at once. Hell, we're going to, in a couple of days, indict a damn president. We've never done that before. We've got the biggest land war going on in Europe we've had since World War II. We've never done that before. And now we got a government leaking ancient, stunning, planet-wide structures on a satellite of Earth, and they've never done that before.
Paul, he's made a ton of good points. A ton of good points. We got a war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Donald Trump getting indicted on some BS.
Yep.
talking about porn stars.
Yeah. And then the moon pictures.
And then the South Koreans just saying, look at all the moon bases, dude. I mean, it's like we're reading the book of Revelations and we're about to hear the fourth trumpet, dude.
The seals are busting open right now,
They're
man.
just the busting all over the place, dude. The Donald Trump seal's busted. The Ukraine land war seal's busted.
Yeah.
And the South Korean leaking the fact that private moon base's seal has broken. What is the fourth seal gonna be, dude?
I'm scared to find out. I'm scared.
Joe Brandon completes a full sentence.
Well, we know that this is unprecedented. That's all we can really say here, Chris. They've never done anything like this before. Now, the other question. All right, so we got.
Haven't we asked enough questions today, Paul?
We got so many questions to get to, Chris. We have so many questions. So we know that there are domes. Why are there domes on the moon? Like, why were they there?
What did they use the moon for, in your opinion?
I think to help create life on Earth, intelligent life. I think this is school. This quickly gets us from physics into metaphysics, which, of course, is why we're going to have George Lambert, part of our conversation on Saturday night. I mean, George, this is so huge. This has never existed in the human ken of humans before, except thousands and thousands of years ago, and then it got forgotten and suppressed.
So wait, I'm confused. You may have to explain to me just a little bit. How are the moon bases a part of human evolution?
So what his basic argument is that Martians went to the moon and used the moon as their home base for turning Earth into some sort of a nursery. So at some point, their plan went awry. Mars died, and then the humans who are actually Martians had to move into Earth.
Got it. So Mars was home world, and they were using the moon as a like colonizing. You know, it was like the Italians using Sicily to get into Turkey, right? So you use that as like a staging platform, and then you did you like that?
Just reference? Like that, just like the Italians using Sicily. Right. I can't think of a better metaphor.
Yeah. You got to have a staging platform to move all your people and ships to somewhere else. And that somewhere else being Earth.
I mean, it's similar to what we're actually doing with the moon and Mars. We're going moon Mars. Like we're using the moon to test everything and then going to Mars from there. But yeah, that's basically what he's talking about.
I love it.
The thing that I actually really like about this, Chris, is that it gives me the idea that maybe we're just caught in a vicious cycle that's been going on for like hundreds of millions of years, where, you know, humans are on Earth and we're talking about terraforming Mars as we're destroying Earth. What if we just have to go back to Mars? And then we're going to have to come back again in 100 million years, man. Who knows how this works? Who knows?
Yep. I 100% agree. It's definitely a Battlestar Galactica future for us.
Yeah, this has all happened before, and it's all going to happen again, man. Just Earth to Mars. So say we all. All right, now here's the cool thing, though, is that we can all participate in this, Chris, because he is crowdsourcing the lunar dome research.
If you're in that eclipse path in 2024 and you have a smartphone with a polarizing filter and something to magnify the image of the moon, like a pair of binoculars or a telescope or whatever, you'll be able to take from your backyard during that eclipse path of totality, the 3 or 4 minutes of totality, you'll be able to take your own pictures of the domes covering the moon, and will provide people with experts they can send the images to be computer processed, and we will have thousands of independent Coast and other listeners verifying the existence of these polarized images of the ancient lunar domes.
We're going to have you accumulate all of them.
Well, yeah, that's what websites do.
That's actually a really cool idea. It's a shame that it's just for lunar domes.
I just love that it's like, do you have a phone? Just take pictures through a binocular and send them in, and then we're going to prove this thing.
Here's the thing, though. Some Coast listeners probably have some pretty sick telescopic gear.
Oh, yeah, dude. If we learned anything from the Hale-Bopp anomaly saga, there are a lot of listeners with telescopes, for sure.
Well, again, it's the perfect thing to listen to while you're telescoping, because what else is on at 1 a.m.?
That's a good point.
When you're supposed to be looking at the stars, dude. I bet there were a shocking number of astronomers who listened to Coast, especially when art was on it.
Yeah, that actually sounds like such a vibe. It kind of makes me want to get a telescope so I can listen to Ghost while looking at the stars. I've never done that before.
It's kind of super cool, especially if you're listening to like alien episodes or lunar space bases.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite time to listen to Coast has always been like it's midnight, you're driving on the interstate completely alone in your car, you put on Coast, and it's just such a good feeling for some reason.
Yeah, it's a vibe,
dude. Even better to be looking at the sky, man.
Yeah.
So check out when and if the moon's eclipse is going to pass over you, and you can send in your photographs to Richard Hoagland and really help with this this community research for sure.
Yeah, let's have a couple of coasternauts send some video over to Mr. Hoagland.
Now, the other thing about the moon base, Chris, is that Hoagland is convinced that there are moon libraries.
Anthropologists and archaeologists try to find when they encounter a new culture, a new set of ruins, a new buried civilization. What do they try to find?
Artifacts.
And the libraries.
If there are any.
Well, you can't have civilization without libraries, because no human can remember stuff that they're not taught. And in order to go from generation to generation to generation, there has to be a repository to collect and store and provide that information to future members of the civilization. But
you're also saying that the far side, they're intact still?
No, they're much better shape, but they're not intact. And the reason we know that is we have amazing images of the ruins on the far side of the moon, the dome in much better condition from the Chinese.
That would be incredible to walk upon a library filled with information from our ancient Martian forebearers. I mean, the knowledge and know-how that would be in those documents would be incredible. The history of that would be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it's actually a plot line of Stargate Atlantis too, where the humans find Atlantis and then they find like the library repository, but the library, it's actually all digital. So they're trying to like extract it and send it back home and stuff. But no, you're right. Like I think it would be one of the cooler finds, and there would need to be some sort of repository of information.
Right. Something, right?
Yeah, there's gotta be something.
Even if it's just like a Cortana or something like that.
It's probably definitely a Cortana, dude.
Yeah, dude. Just like a super smart AI who's just been living on the moon for thousands of years.
It's just Chat GPT hanging out, waiting for someone to talk to him. Ask him a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to find it one day. Now, we do have some callers, Chris.
Well, it's been a little bit since we've heard a good coast-to-coast call. I guess we did a whole call-in show, but...
Yeah. Well, this caller thinks that maybe all of this was made by modern humans and not ancient aliens.
Ooh.
Yes, and I saw tracks. And the tracks, I think, are very important. I saw tank tracks and, like, tire tracks, like rubber tracks. And I think the tracks mean that it was us, because why would these civilizations that built all of this need tracks? I think that we went there in like the 60s or the 70s. We brought up a ton of equipment. What did you think about that? And why were the photos censored? And how did they get uploaded to NASA?
Okay, but I've got to, kind of refute what you just said, because there's no way that the Apollo technology created a set of tiered lunar-wide domes covering 15 million square miles and towering 50 miles above the lunar surface. There's no way. There is no possible way that we did this or this is being faked. This is real. This is going to change everything. And George's, audience tonight is getting in on the ground floor.
Terrible idea. Stupid idea. I kind of liked that, maybe there is kind of a Space Force secret moon base. I was kind of liking where the caller was going with that.
Well, and this is the problem with Hoagland, dude, is that when you're on coast, especially nowadays, you always do the yes and. You don't shut down guests and you don't shut down callers, okay? Yeah. And he shut that guy down, and that was mean. I also do love the fact that everyone's just looking at pictures of the moon, and this guy's like, I see tracks everywhere. It must be us. Yes. Everyone's just having fun with it, man. Everyone's just kind of like looking at it as, an image and just trying to spot what they can spot.
I just also love that Hoagland is so convinced that there is this giant complex under the surface of the moon. Like, he is dead set on it.
It's going to change everything.
Dead set on it.
And everyone listening is in on the ground floor, dude. In on the ground floor.
That was a goofy statement.
That is the most grifter statement you could use.
Yeah,
dude.
I mean, that's Barnum and Bailey 100%.
You hear that right before you're about to get ripped off.
when you're about to buy that timeshare, you're gonna get on the ground floor.
Oh well, so I think. In my opinion, Hoagland starts pissing off Noory because he keeps talking to callers like that. And you don't talk to Noory's callers like that, dude. So here's another example of Hoagland like actually interrupting callers.
No net tide will come up and wipe them out.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the grunion.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's I mean, supposedly I'm not a gynecologist, but women have cycles that apparently mirror the moon. I mean, we wouldn't be alive without the moon.
All kinds of documentable connection between life on Earth and the moon. And all I'm saying is, given the scale of the technology we're seeing in these images, the folks who did it deliberately because this is supposed to be a nursery. And something went radically wrong. We're not going to find out what and how to fix it until we find the damn libraries.
What's your other question, Eddie?
The damn libraries, George.
The damn libraries.
You gotta find the damn libraries, George.
Yeah, but George's tone just gets like a little growlier and a little growlier, dude. Every single minute of this, because he's just like, stop interrupting people, dude.
Yeah,
I don't think he likes it.
Stop yelling at my callers, Hoagland.
No, you got to respect the callers, dude.
These are the people buying the colloidal silver, Hoagland. Stop it.
So those were our callers, but the last piece here that I want to get into, Chris, was that Hoagland doesn't only look at photographs taken by NASA and South Korea and China for evidence of lunar domes. He is also looking at the paintings of astronauts who went to the moon.
How many lunar astronauts are still alive? Just Buzz?
It's funny you should bring up the astronauts, because the one astronaut who we now know was telling us the truth for all those years that he was selling his paintings, Alan Bean. Alan Bean. So when we come back after the break at the bottom of the hour, remind me to talk in detail about how Alan Bean foreshadowed all of what we've now confirmed and how you can get in on the ground floor to help promote Alan Bean's paintings of ancient structures on the moon.
All right, Paul. So I must be a pretty bad American. Who is Alan Bean?
Alan Bean is an astronaut that went to the moon. Because we had multiple Apollo missions that landed on the moon. Everyone only cares about the first one, but we just kept sending people for quite a while. Alan Bean came back to Earth and started painting. He died in 2018, but you can find all of his paintings online, and they're really nice paintings of astronauts on the moon. Now, where Hoagland is seeing ancient lunar structures in these photographs, I am not sure. Because they all seem to just be paintings of the moon to me.
Every photo you've shown me so far has no real I mean, they're astronauts, and then there's like the lunar modules.
Mm-hmm.
You know, their little rover. And that's real, and the American flag. I mean, like, these look like a legit. I was actually imagining something like a little bit more far-fetched. I mean, these are like essentially realist photos.
Yeah, I was also expecting to see something a little crazier, like he got abstract with it, or he was imagining the future of the moon. It's basically just photographs of what he saw while he was up there, which is like another dude standing next to an American flag.
Yeah, I mean, they're paintings, but yeah, they're like super normal, real life, what the normie version of us going to space is.
Yeah, just the super typical astronaut in a spacesuit. I don't understand. And this is why I'm getting a little concerned for Hoagland, because I have no idea what he's seeing. Like, I actually don't know. And I look at the pictures that he sent to Coast that he is discussing directly. I don't see domes. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah. Here's a little bit more of him talking about how Alan Bean was handpicked so that these paintings could get out.
Even decades earlier than when he was picked to go to the moon, Alan Bean went to Naval Flight School, and he was really interested in art, fine art.
Like as a painter?
Yeah, as a painter, yes. He did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paintings when he got back from the moon, using all his skills that he developed over decades before he went to the moon. My feeling now, based on what we know, is that he was handpicked to be the artist. Because remember, my model, George, is that the Apollo astronauts had their brains altered when they came back. That was what the quarantine period was all about, to make them forget everything they'd really seen and kind of conform to a fake script. Well, how do you get around a fake script? What if you send an astronaut who is not left-brained, but is basically right-brained?
Dude, I knew that memory eraser from the Men in Black was a real thing. I knew it deep inside my bones. I'm glad that Mr. Hoagland has confirmed that for me.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too is that apparently to get around the memory eraser, you just need to be creative.
Right.
And then you'll be fine. Yes. And this is also the most convoluted way of approaching disclosure, where you get an astronaut, you send him to the moon, he sees alien artifacts, you bring him back, you brainwash him so that he doesn't remember it, but you strategically picked him because he was creative, so that years later, after like not being on the moon for 30 years, he starts painting pictures of the moon that secretly have structures that no one can actually see except for like one guy who goes like coast to coast.
Yes, dude. It made even more sense after you explained it to us.
I'm glad I could help. Yeah. I'm glad.
So, Mr. Hoagland, really appreciated you teaching us about what is truly on the dark side of the moon.
Well, Chris, that will be the show for today. Scale of 1 to 5 gigantic lunar domes full of all of the ancient library information you could ever want from Martians. What do you give Richard Hoagland?
I'm not going to remember everything you just said, but I'm going to give it like a 2, I think. Okay. I think it's a 2 for me. And let me give you a couple of the reasons why. This guy is Barnum Bailey.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just his whole way of doing things. But he's almost not as good as Barnum, because, like you were saying, he's like shutting people down for their thoughts. I don't know. Maybe that's a form of like negging or something like that. That he's doing. But every once in a while, it was like you could see where this was like kind of a fun idea, but then he just would ruin it.
Yeah.
He would just ruin it. He just like kept on ruining like the fun idea, the cool idea, the good lore. And like, don't ruin it, dude. Come on.
Well, if you want more Richard C. Hoagland, you can go to his website, The Other Side of Midnight, and sign up for his Club 19.5 is what he calls it, for $9.95 per month. I'm gonna give him a 1, honestly. He gets 1 lunar dome from me because, like you said, like, first off, I'm a little worried about him because he is seeing things that I don't think are there.
No.
And not just in NASA pictures, but in old astronauts' paintings that he would sell. And it almost reminded me like George Bush's paintings. It's like so innocent, you know what I mean? Like, look at this, like adorable thing I'm doing in my retirement.
It was like the Epstein paintings, where
like
you
had
George Bush knocking down the Twin Towers and Bill Clinton in a dress.
Mm-hmm. Exact same
stained dress. So it's the same thing to me.
Same exact thing. And then, like you said, he was kind of a dick to callers who were calling in and trying to share their ideas, which are equally ridiculous. I will not say they're any more ridiculous, though. So it's like, show a little respect here, man. Like, you're clearly out on a limb. Let them be out on a limb, too. Don't be mean to them.
If anything, like secret moon base created by the Space Force makes more sense than ancient Martian 10,000 kilometers under the ground complex.
Yeah.
Like that's a harder pill to swallow than secret moon base by Space Force.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So I'm not buying it. And also his evidence is a marketing photograph from a gallery wheel on the homepage of a website. So it's not selling me.
Yeah, dude. And the Chi-Coms.
I don't like it when you say that. I feel like that's an inappropriate phrase to use.
I love it. Chinese communists, dude. What do you
that
want
feels
me to
better.
call
Use the whole phrase.
Chi-Com.
Well, that's going to be our episode today, Chris. Thank you to our listeners for listening, and we will see you all next week for more of whatever this is.
All conspiracy, all the time. Later.